Everybody hear me okay? I've never had too much trouble with people hearing me. You are at the session for all things digital, and my name is Maryam Phillips. I am the Executive Director for HSLC, and if you do not know, HSLC is the nonprofit partner to our state library and Office of Commonwealth Libraries, and we handle a number of statewide technology initiatives across Pennsylvania, so that's our role. And today I'm going to be talking about the digitization effort in Pennsylvania, and I think that Mike just gave us a really great lead-in to this session, and I wanted to start by asking all of you to do something. And Memory Masters, you can already use your project, but for everyone else in the room, what I would like to do is ask you to start out by thinking about your community. And whether you're thinking of your community as a place that you work or a place that you live, I would like you to try and picture one thing in your community that is so important it should be preserved. In other words, this is something that really needs to be passed down to future generations. So something unique, something great about your community. It might be something that's not so great. I mean, we learn from the past, right? So not all things are wonderful, happy stories, but they are important stories and stories for us to learn from. And if you keep that one thing in your mind as we go along, I'm hoping that towards the end, I'll be able to ask you, what do you see in terms of a path forward for your community to embark on this digitization or preservation path? So this is a really hot topic. If you went to the Pennsylvania Library Association conference, you probably saw many sessions devoted to DPLA and what Pennsylvania is doing. And I guess I'd like to start off by asking how many people here already have digital collections in their libraries or organizations where they work. Just a few. That would be great. You know, there's lots of reasons for preserving our history. You know, it's our roots. You know, it's who we are. It shows what our culture is all about. And it's not just really for us, it's for those who come after us. It's for, you know, people that want to know what happened here, what happened in this place, what was important about this place. And for me, I just keep coming back to the Dr. Seuss story, Working Here's Who, where that little tiny community of Whoville kept saying, we are here, we are here, we are here. And this is our way of expressing that we are here. And 100 years from now, someone will be able to look at a digital image of something and be able to see a story. So we are going to kind of recap for you all the things that have been happening in Pennsylvania over the past year. And I'm going to throw a lot of abbreviations at you, but you've got your handouts, so you'll be able to remember what they all mean a lot later. And I hope that this is going to be a good story that you'll be able to share once you get home. So, the first abbreviation I'm going to hand off to you is PDCB, Pennsylvania Digital Collections Project. So that is the name that this Pennsylvania initiative has kind of adopted. And the folks that are behind that initiative are members of all of these groups that you see here. So hopefully you recognize some of those institutions, and I for sure hope you recognize Powell Library, that we'll be talking about that later. But the effort to digitize in Pennsylvania is not new, and you may recognize that some of these organizations already have their own collections. But what is new is that we're now collaborating in a really meaningful way to become a force for a single hub within Pennsylvania that we go to DPLA. So back in 2006, digital collections project. And the goal from that discussion obviously was to join the DPLA. So, the DPLA, the next initial, Digital Public Library of America, and the benefit to being part of DPLA is that instead of being in these little silos, our content can now be advertised, promoted, available, discoverable worldwide. So that's the big advantage to us really getting our act together and becoming a group that is cohesive enough to send our content up to DPLA. DPLA is certainly growing. There are more than 17 states involved. There were 17 states involved before we became involved. And they range from Connecticut, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, New York, to Wisconsin. So lots of states are already involved in DPLA, and we want to join that list. So the way DPLA works is predicated on what's called a hub and spoke model. And you see DPLA is kind of in the center. I'm going to try to point it a little bit, but it's a little awkward here. And we are basically using two arenas to get to DPLA. So the first would be a service hub. So all of those little bubbles that are orange represent service hubs. And if you can see, they have a path straight into DPLA. So every state that has a service hub sends its content directly into DPLA. And then there's another vehicle that we're using in Pennsylvania, which is represented by these little gray dots. So I'm calling these content hosts, which basically means we're an organization for a place, we got a collection, and we need to get it to DPLA. Well, DPLA doesn't have 25 million places sending stuff from the same state. They want it to be organized. So our arrangement is now for these various content hosts with the collections that are already digitized to move into a service hub, and then the service hub will move into DPLA. So that makes sense, right? Anybody have any questions about how that's going to work? Okay. So what would be an example of a content host? Power Library, right? Or Lackawanna has digital archives available. They have their own content. It's already digitized. The Keystone Library Network is another place that I'm calling a content host. The content is already there. It's digitized. And so now what we're going to do is figure out how to get all of that content up to the DPLA. And for that, we need an aggregator. So the aggregator's job is to comb through all those collections, pull out the metadata, pull out thumbnail images, and then create another superhighway up to DPLA with that content. So the aggregator job is being handled by Penn State and Temple University. So we're very grateful to them for actually doing a lot of this technical work associated with the aggregator. And the aggregator is Hydra. That's the platform that we're using. Kind of looks like an alligator instead of an aggregator. But anyway, what had to happen was, in order for Pennsylvania to join in with DPLA said, well, you got to show us, what you're doing. So Penn State and Temple got together and they used Hydra to create basically what was a proof of concept for an aggregator. And so that's what we're working with right now. This proof of concept has resulted in special coding that Temple and Penn State have prepared, which goes out and harvests the information from all those content hosts. Okay? And what it's doing is it's coming in, and for any collection that subscribes to this standard, OAIPMH, the Open Archives Initiative Protocol for Metadata Harvesting, that international standard allows this aggregator to understand what it's looking at, pull it all in, and vacuum it up. And so they come into the Power Library overnight, they go grab some data, metadata from the collections, and pull joined DPLA by last March. But of course, there's lots more to joining DPLA than just the technical part. But in the summer of this year, the aggregator kind of went ready live for prime time. And if you wish to see what it looks like, you don't have to actually look through a lot of code, because the other thing that Temple and Penn State did was they made the aggregator look kind of like your OPACs, right? It's human readable. It's not just a bunch of brackets and characters and underscores and things like that. They actually made it so that all of the data they harvest can be visually interpreted by people anywhere across the state. So in your handouts and at the top of this slide here is the address. If you are curious and would like to go out and take a look at the aggregator, how it works, you are welcome to do so. That's open and available. Once you are on the site, you will really get a sense of how much work went into this particular project. So, okay, so now, project's open the gas. All of the institutions that you see on this slide have qualified and have been moved up. They've been backing right on up into the Pennsylvania State Aggregator. So, do any of you represent libraries or groups that you see on the board there? No? Like, all part of the Power Library. So, we'll pretend like this is a Power Library. Every one of these groups was able to be harvested. Their collections were able to be harvested because they used some sort of software that uses those NISO standards. Those standards that any software can read. So that's really the big key. I talked about that initial meeting where everybody came and sat down and said, oh, we got to do this, and then they couldn't come to agreement on who was going to do what, and so they all just kind of disappeared and went back. Well, the result was we ended up with organizations all over the state doing all different things for their digitized content. But it doesn't really matter if what's underlying all of that software is the needs for which an aggregator can come in and pull it all together. So we don't have to have one big giant server anymore where everything is stored. It doesn't need to be that way. So the data has been harvested from all of these institutions. The test harvest with the prototype pulled in 29 institutions across the state and 147,000 actual records. So you also have to kind of push the DPLA that you've got a significant enough size collection to make it worth joining as a service hub. So at this point, this summer we were able to prove that without a doubt. So if the one part of joining DPLA is the technical part, what's the other part? The organizational part. And whose job is that? That's our job. So there's got to be some rules to how this thing is going to work, right? Okay. Here's the rules. And it looks a little complicated, but the first part of the rules are these right here. The management and governance piece. And all of the groups that got together are pretty much openly cooperative. So there's not any who's on first and I want to be the big dog, any of that. But you do have to kind of have someone steering the ship. So the management and governance starts with the founders group, which is up here. And that's the list that I showed you in the very beginning. So each one of those groups sent a representative. And they're more like the executives, the directors, the people that were really the movers and shakers in all those different organizations. That's who sat down first. And they are now considered to be the founders group for the Pennsylvania initiative to DPLA. The next group is the planning group. And that is kind of the task force that's doing a lot of the working organization, kind of blending how we're going to make all of the technology work and communicate with the state and communicate with the founders group and just kind of do the work that makes it possible for us to join the DPLA. And then this past summer, with the help of an LSTA grant, seed money from that grant has enabled the group to actually hire a project manager, and I should say two, because there were two part-time project managers that, the planning group had gotten to the point where there's only so much time you can devote to this initiative before you really need someone that's very laser focused on it to make sure you meet all your targets. Because once you start talking to DPLA, you're starting to fill out forms and commit to certain things, and it's time to get the structure in place. And there just weren't enough people in the planning group that had the ability to devote that kind of time. So that represents the governance for this particular project. The rest of it is kind of the technical part of how things work, and I would say things have changed just a little bit. But if you think of this bottom row down here, this is labeled as content providers, meaning there's no web presence over here, and then there are content providers over here who do have a web presence. And things are going to kind of break down into ready or not. Here I come. Are you ready or are you not ready? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, it's all about getting the content providers across the state pushed all the way up to the top goal, which is DPLA. So content hosts, like the Power Library, will then kind of move things up into another level here of structure, and that's the metadata group. And the metadata group would be like, kind of like the catalogers in your libraries. I mean, these are the folks that are concerned with the quality of the tagging and the descriptors in your records. And DPLA wants to be able to know that when Pennsylvania sends information up into DPLA, descriptors aren't all over the place. There's consistency of placement, there's consistency of language, of right statement. All those kinds of things have to be in place, and we have to make sure that it's in place. So this metadata group is the one that kind of reaches back and says, let's preview your data, let's make sure it's okay, and if it is, then we can continue on to the next level. Rights requirements are really, really important. A couple times today we've heard the word Creative Commons licenses. We need to ensure that what we are passing along all the way up to DPLA is not restricted in terms of who may use it, view it, etc. So that's kind of like that's a big deal. So that's why the metadata group is really important. And the organizations that are part of the founding group and the planning group have representatives on the metadata group. So we're really cross-pollinated in terms of the governance of what's happening in Pennsylvania. Once something gets the official stamp of approval here, and the metadata group says, looks good, ready to go, then things can move from this box on up to where the aggregator sits. And because we're a very democratic kind of group here in Pennsylvania. So there's no one institution that is, being responsible for everything and making all the rules. We are trying to handle everything in such a way that no matter what happens, people change their positions. Does that mean something happens to the project? The project disappears. The way we set things up with Penn State and Temple are what we're going to call co-aggregators. So for right now, Temple has the main responsibility to be the aggregator. But if something happens and all of a sudden they can't fulfill that responsibility, we are set up for Penn State to take it. So we're trying to, survive the fact that people retire, people move to other jobs, and how many times have you seen something where, a library's got a great program or service, and then the director leaves, or the person who runs that program or service leaves, and then all of a sudden it languishes. We don't want that to happen. We're making a commitment that we are going to stick with DPLA no matter what. So I raised the idea a little bit about ready or not. Okay, so when you saw that bottom row of content posts, one was like, yeah, we've got the stuff, but it's not digitized. And then the other one was like, yeah, we've got stuff that's digitized, but maybe we don't know where to put it. group that might be, yeah, it's digitized, we got our own place, and we've got the software, so now what do we do? So those are kind of like the scenarios that are happening all across the state right now. So for the first group, the ones that have digital files, but the place to put them, okay? What is your option? Well, if you are an Access PA participant, Power Library is your option. Because HSLC just happens to have software that has an unlimited license. So we are able to accept collections from all across the state. No matter how many collections you have, you are welcome to bring them into the Power Library for no additional cost. And I say that because there is a cost. You have to be part of the Access Pennsylvania program in order to get this benefit. But once you're in, there's no additional cost because this software is provided. It's not free. It's already paid for by the state and federal dollars that come to HSLC to host this program. So the Power Library has a banner across the top of it. You go to powerlibrary.org. If you look furthest over to the right, you will see there is an area called PA Photos and Documents. And you click on that. That takes you out to our Content DM server. And that's where all the Power Library collections reside. And we have them in a secure hosting facility. We've got a mirrored server so that whatever's on that server is also duplicated on another server. And we allow you to be the managers of your content. So you bring your content to the Power Library, but it's still yours. It's not ours, it's yours. So you're the one that adds to it, or that modifies it, or brings in new collections for your institution. You are currently looking at a handout that has a redacted line right on the slide. Because in my exuberance putting this little program together, I realized I was going to let the Memory Masters URL out today. And we didn't want to do that because there really it's not happened yet. But the Memory Masters are using this program. So that's why I say there really seems to be a theme this time with ILEAD because we're all like really synced up in terms of talking about digital content. So anyway, stay tuned because the Memory Masters will be able to talk to you a little bit more about how it was to work with Power Library. And because the content is your own, because you manage it, we don't tell you, we don't do it for you, we will get you trained. And the Memory Masters has put together a really great handbook, how-to already. It's kind of like, here's where you step yourself through the process. So there are plenty of tools available, and I don't want anyone to think they can't do it, because you can do it. Absolutely, you can do it. Okay, so what if you're like not ready? You need help. There are a couple of ways that we're here to help. So the first is hopefully you've started hearing about the Scribe Station, which represents 2 tabletop scanning units that the Office of Commonwealth Libraries has on loan from the Internet Archive. And they are the folks that brought you the Wayback Machine. Okay, I had to use the Wayback Machine just this week to see when did the Power Library start with digitizing? Well, I went to the Wayback Machine to see when was their earliest web page I could find, and it was back in 2007. So we were started before then, but we weren't actually posting stuff online, I guess, until 2007. So anyway, these Scribe stations are available from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. There are 2 of them. And I do not have one with me. I didn't even bring a picture because they look very scary, but they're not that scary. They break down into a box that's maybe about the size of a steamer trunk. So it's a pretty significant, hefty bit of machinery. But those 2 machines will travel all around the state of Pennsylvania for libraries or other organizations, local history societies, local museums, that feel like they have things they want to digitize. So you can pretty much Google a tabletop scanner and you're going to see what this equipment will look like. And I also brought with me copies of the application for anyone that feels like they may started, and it's just completed kind of a beta test at Scranton Public Library this past weekend. And the state library is just waiting for you to say, I've got stuff that I need to digitize. I would like to borrow a scribe station. Here are the reasons why we would like to have it, and this is the time frame in which we'd like to have it. And this is not a competitive process. So it's not like, you're going to fill in your application and then, oh, another library is going to reach you out. And it's just going to be a matter of trying to make the best use of the geography of Pennsylvania. So, maybe one ends up circling around in the western side and one ends up in the eastern side. But the scribe station is there for any library that wishes to digitize. Did you have a question, Liz? What's the time frame? I think that serious inquiries only is going to be the motto. Because I think maybe if you get a couple weeks, that might be the average amount of time. So I think you would be expected to kind of like have your stuff ready to go. Yeah, because think about how many organizations there are across Pennsylvania. These are only two. So hopefully, anyone who's interested, please stop afterwards, and I will give you a copy of the application. And then there's another option available to you as well, which is Power Library for Librarians. So if you don't know, powerlibrary.org has a little button at the bottom of every page that says for librarians. That's where your stuff is. Okay, so your stuff is on the back side of the public can see for Power Library. But in terms of photos and documents and the information that is in the slides today, no passwords are needed. It's all available to you. Just go there and use it. Ask any questions that you have. So the way that the Power Library is going to help is not with scanners, although who knows, that may end up being something for the future. We've got the man. And I think that all of you might know, tech is great, tech is wonderful, but people are what really make those tools a lot easier for use. So HSLC has hired a consultant. Her name is Leanne, and her whole job is to start crisscrossing the state and actually providing advice to places that are looking to digitize but maybe don't know, what are my steps? What important things should I be thinking about? Your collections may not be photos. They may not be books. Where I live, Rosemont College has a collection of nuns' habits dating back to 1900. They've got physical collections of materials that are cloth. Well, Leanne is a member of the Society for American Archivists. She's a member of the Delaware Valley Archivists group. She's on the planning committee for digital humanities groups. She's part of the Pennsylvania Historical Association. She has a lot of expertise beyond just saying, here's how you scan a photograph and here's how you assign the descriptors. So her job is going to be help folks get ready, but also kind of pay you a little bit more attention in terms of what your, the unique parts of your collection are. Maybe you need to know, well, what am I supposed to do to store this stuff? How do I make sure that it's preserved? It can be digitized and photos of it can be available, but what's the best environmental condition? What kinds of things should I be looking for? Maybe where can I find some grants to help us with that? So that's another part of the Power Library that we are offering to organizations across the state. I've given the, yes?
I guess I'm ahead of you. Are you going to give us contact information for her, or do we get her through you? Okay.
Yes.
Because I had Ed come out and talk about memory mappers, and my folks are pretty excited about the possibilities, and I think it's time that we start focusing on some digitization projects.
I'm hoping that, yes, by the time everybody leaves here, they can at least think of one project that would be important to do. Leanne has one rule from me, and that's probably because I'm from public libraries. I'll just put that out there. She is going to be looking at all kinds of organizations. So she might see a local historical society. She may see a local museum in a community. When she goes to any place that is not a public library, her first stop is to find the public library. And and to go talk to that librarian and to say, here I am, I'm here to talk to so-and-so, and is this a partnership opportunity for you? Why? Well, the library is probably already a member of AccessPA. So, if there's a partnership opportunity, that means the other group is not going to have to pay to become part of the Power Library. They can be hosted by the subscription that the public library already has as being a participant of AccessPA in the Power Library. So she has a lot of experience, and I think, that gives us the opportunity to kind of really just connect one-on-one, because not everybody's collection is going to be exactly the same. So, moving back to, the statewide picture here. The state was approved to be a service hub in August. Yay. Okay, so DPLA said, come on in, come on down. So now we're starting to do some of the stuff that has to happen in order to make that a reality. So agreements have to be prepared, for all the content hosts that are going to be part of this project. And as Power Library, we have already asked all of our participants to have collections in Power Library to ensure that their materials freely available, public domain, no rights restrictions. But there are some collection and content providers that really haven't thought about that and might think, oh, well, we're not quite ready to give all the rights away. Well, if DPLA can't freely distribute, the thumbnail images and the metadata, then you really wouldn't qualify. So the key is, whatever you're sending up, you really want it to be found worldwide. But the bottom line is, once somebody sees it out there in the big world, they're really coming all the way back down to the server to actually see the collection. So if you put something in the Power Library, that's where it's going to stay. But it will be discoverable at the state level and then even further at the world level. So the legal agreements are underway. Revisions to the metadata is happening right now between the aggregator, metadata team, and all the different content hosts. And in early 2016, we really hope that we're going to have our first ingest into DPLA. So right now, the harvesting has resumed. We've started again. We're done with the prototypes. Now this is the real deal this time. The harvesting is happening, and those organizations that were part of the prototype are now going to be collected up into what will ultimately be the really first ingest into DPLA next year. Yeah. Does that mean that those will be immediately available? Yes. Yes. So we're a service hub. We've got all the, I think what we're doing right now is what the metadata team would call crosswalking. DPLA needs to know when they get the data from our aggregator, do they need to write scripts to ensure that the coding that we have in certain places matches up with other places that they expect it needs to be like they're in. So once all of those crosswalks have completed, then they'll be ready to actually start displaying. So, in just 1 year, a lot has happened, and on a lot of different fronts. So I hope that you're seeing that progress, and you're starting to feel like you can be part of it, because it is really, really important. Once the ingesting starts happening, DPLA will look back to our aggregator maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. So it's not as though you create a collection and tomorrow you're going to see it in DPLA, because that's not the case. A couple things that we are trying to work on right now is something we realized when the Scribe stations were borrowed, I guess, from the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive actually requires that anything that is scanned with those pieces of equipment actually is sent as a collection to the Internet Archive. And so all along we were kind of thinking, okay, well then the collection is going to be in 2 places. It would be libraries that use that Scribe Station will still be able to say they're also associated with the Pennsylvania Service Hub for DPLA. So some little things still need to be tweaked, but we're working on it, and I'm sure we can figure something out. So, okay, if you are interested in, taking things to the next level, there are lots of different ways to follow what's going on. And one of them is, you can just send us an email. You can send an email to the Pennsylvania Digital Collections team at dplanpa@gmail. So that's easy. Just send us your questions, and someone from that group will get back to you. Okay, with next steps, or here's what we think is the right way for you to go. Do you have a collection? Do you not have a collection? Do you need consulting? Do you want to sign up for a Scribe Station? What's your need? A Twitter account has been started, so you can follow me on Twitter. And then, of course, in the Power Library for Librarians, we have a special section that is devoted to Office of Commonwealth Libraries special projects. So we have created an ILEAD page there where all the team information can be found for Pennsylvania. And there is also a section just devoted to this project, the Digital Collections Project too. So one day when we grow up, we'll probably have a real website that's off on its own. But for now, Power Library is a place to find any information about the history of this project, who's involved, when it meets, what the updates are, all that kind of good stuff is available there. And then you can also subscribe to this listserv called PA Digital at listserv.albright.org. So if you send a message that says, subscribe PA Digital, you'll get a nice little response back that says, you're subscribed now. Whenever we send messages, you're going to hear updates about what's going on in Pennsylvania. So this is the group that actually put on the PA Backwards session at the Pennsylvania Library Association. Was it last month or this month? Earlier this month, I guess. But it was kind of another summary of what's happening. So the PA Digital Listserv is another really good way to kind of keep in touch with what's going on. And then, because I'm an HSLC and I'm pushing the Power Library all the time, the last slide is really talking about the photos and documents collection and where can you find more information. I do have with me a copy of the photos and documents application. It's only 2 pages, very, very brief. You can complete it online or offline, but you might want to first read through these guidelines because this is where we put all the fine print. This is the business about don't send us restricted stuff. Here's what we're expecting from you. This is what we, kind of like the memorandum of understanding, if you will. Here's what we will provide. Here's what you need to provide. So the guidelines are very important, and they're available in the Power Library for librarians under the PA Photos and Documents area. Like I said, I have copies of the application available here, but if you're an online kind of person, you can do a fillable PDF and send it to us that way instead. And then we also have a brochure. So for those of you who might be thinking about maybe partnering with another organization in your community and you want kind of a quick description of what this Power Library Photos and Documents collection is all about, this is just a 2-page brochure. You can just download it, print it off, and then have it for your meeting or your visit with that partner organization. So that is kind of the broad overview of everything. But I always like to finish by telling you, please don't forget this email address, support@hslc.org. This is the one mailbox you use to reach HSLC, and there are 11 staff members that monitor it constantly. So we have areas of expertise assigned to different staff members, but when you send something to support, you're going to get an answer within a day from someone about what your need is. So that's just part of our responsibilities as being the nonprofit partner to the state, is that we are going to be diligent in ensuring that people get information in a timely fashion. So, support of HSLC is where you can email to say, hey, I want to do X, Y, or Z, can you help with that? And then we will work and take it from there. So, all of this said, I guess I would like to hear a couple ideas from you guys as to what types of community projects you think you might have. Is there someone in the back row, named Jennifer, that might have an idea for a collection?
I have lots of ideas for collections. As you guys know, Maryam's our mentor, and we have a history group that meets at our library. I'm not sure, though, if this would be the best thing for them because they're planning on writing a book, and I don't think they're going to share until the book's out. But afterwards, I'm pretty sure that would be a great idea for them.
Well, they could start on digitizing without making anything public until after the book is ready. But I guess what I would say is I wouldn't wait until the book was out to create the digital collection, because you could possibly convince them to launch those two things at the same time.
That's a good idea. We filled out an application about a year and a half ago for them with us hosting, but I don't think they ever used the content.
Well, it's a very daunting project. It sounds easy because anybody can snap a photo and put a photo on a flatbed scanner. But in the case of Jen's collection, there's lots of types of materials that are different that I think would be an example of why someone like Leanne would be really important, because she can go in and say, from an archivist or a preservationist perspective, these are some tips for you. She's not going to do the project for anyone, but she's going to be able to kind of be a guide or a mentor through it and just get people started on. Once you have a plan, then you can go ahead and execute it. But until you have a plan, you're just kind of unsure how to get started. So Leanne's role is going to be to help you get started. Is there someone else with something in their community that they think might?
Because of where I work, I get asked this question all the time, do you know you're going to help this digitize? So I have a list of about 7. For example, the current free laundering from EPA is also upstairs. It has a GAR grant from the public, Army of the Republic Coast. So they have manuscripts and artifacts and images. They have a pretty impressive collection of materials that they should get.
Well, that actually opens up an important point. I mean, you can scan a picture of a document, but if you don't have someone transcribe it, it's not necessarily going to be searchable. So there's something called optical character recognition. Some groups have actually crowdsourced the transcription, made them available to the whole community to help type, do a page, type up a page, and until documents were completed. So Leanne has experience with that as well. So that is an important part of understanding that just because you digitize something doesn't mean it's really searchable until you've embedded all the good metadata, and you've also kind of described what the words are that make up this page so that they in turn become searchable. Yes, Gabby.
I just wanted to say that with our project, I emailed the support people like every week just with all sorts of chaos, and they always got back within like a day. They were always really nice, even though I just completely destroyed our collection. They're so like, it's okay, we fixed it.
That is the role. That is the role for us to make sure that you know your collection's in a good place. That's going to be cared for and protected. So that would be Dennis back at the office is our lead digital collections manager. And like I said, we don't do it for you, but hopefully we give you enough tools that you can manage to do it on yourself and do it for yourself, and it's really manageable. Anybody else has a collection back home that they think might be a good candidate, whether it's, regardless of the state of readiness? Well, what I am hoping that is that you kind of feel like you do have options, and that you can go back and share those options with folks in your communities, because it's really important to know where we come from. So that is pretty much done really well. Diana?
I have a question. Earlier you had mentioned that to be eligible, the material has to fit a certain protocol, the OIJ.
OAI.
So by uploading it to PA Photos and Docs, does that make it
Sure
into
is.
that protocol? And what about the metadata? I don't know about the manual so much yet. Will that manual help us in knowing where to put that metadata? Oh, good, okay. They're gonna be quiet about this project on Thursday, huh?
Mom's the word. Yeah, we have had to streamline some of our processes. For example, we have over 100 collections in the Power Library. They're not all DPLA ready. Some of them don't have enough search capabilities to them. Some, the image quality is maybe not what we think would be the best. And, but those that have the sufficient metadata, and we were able to kind of have them meet the standards that are being imposed now in order to participate in DPLA, those collections will be harvested, and it will be possible for us to tell the aggregator, harvest these collections, do not harvest these. So you don't have to worry that if you're sending your collection and you think it's halfway done, that next month the aggregator's going to come and scoop everything up, because you already know now it's going to be every 2 to 3 months that that's going to happen. But until you actually say, yes, now we're ready, your collection's not going to get pushed up to DPLA either. But we did have to, ensure that for collections that look DPLA ready, we actually had to go in and kind of move metadata and reword things with the permission of the collection owners, of course. But we've gone in and made everything consistent. And there are companies that do the digitization work, like Backstage is a Pennsylvania company. So lots of folks have used Backstage, but it is possible to do it yourself, as you now know with the Scribe Station, doing your own flatbed scanner, and the training that you would get by actually becoming a participant in the Photos and Documents collection. I was going to say, Diana, you had a lot more questions for Mike, so.
Oh, I can keep them coming if you want. Are you able to show us any of the collections right now that are up on?
They're awesome.
Sure.
Search checkbook.
Checkbook
CHAPBOOK, checkbook, or cookbook. That was awesome. I can't believe we tried it. That's amazing.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the Power Library. Yes. So here's the link that I was talking about to get to the current Photos and Documents collection. The Memory Masters link is hidden, so don't worry, I won't be revealing anything by going into it. And down at the bottom here, this is where your For Librarians link is. So for anyone that is interested in joining the Photos and Documents collection, you come into kind of the back end of the Power Library, and this is the material for librarians. And here is the Photos and Documents section, and there's the application form that I talked about. Here is the brochure that I talked about, and then here's more information about support. The Content DM system software is what we use to run the Photos and Documents collection, and we have it available and searchable by creating these 2 different layers for people to access. The first is to see things by the subject of the collection. or to actually look at them by the institution that has contributed to collections. So you see an institution name along with however many collections they have sent along to our library. So if we go down, who did you say, Elizabeth?
Well, I did a search across the collections.
Well, why don't we go into,
There's a whole bunch of church cookbooks in there from up to the Scranton VA.
oh, okay.
It's amazing.
All right, well, let's just go in. Once you're in to the software, you can do searching. So you can browse all, browse by subject. And that's not right. Okay, so this is the subject list. Go back in and get into the search box again. You might have to manage exposure to things, but you can choose collections to actually search along the side. So I don't remember which group you brought that owned that particular bookbook. Was it Carnegie, Scranton? Let's see, I see there's a bunch of state library collections. Scranton might be under Lackawanna, could it be under Lackawanna County?
Well, I was searching the collection, but it didn't look like it was searching for something. There was something you gave. I was just surprised that you didn't.
Well, where's this up? The Content DM software is basically just another interface, and it's behind Power Library, and you're looking at the thumbnail examples of thumbnails that will go up to DPLA, and then the metadata behind them will also go with those images. So this is an example of, this might be great, having the writings of Benjamin Franklin, but it's not searchable unless someone actually transcribes what's on that page. So digitizing is one thing, but what's the ultimate use for your